Okay, so the somatic nervous system is a functional division of the nervous system, and it's things that the conscious brain can perceive, sensation, and then it's also processing and the motor activities that can be consciously controlled. And so they cover in this section they cover the special senses, and one of those are the special senses that occur in the ear. And so we're going to go through the parts of the ear, the external and middle ear, and then the inner ear, which is where the sensory organs are. And there's actually three distinct sensory organs. So external ear is the auricle, the ear canal, and then the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane is a flap of skin that's at this blind ending canal. And when there are vibrations in the air, this eardrum vibrates as well, and that transmits the vibrations to the middle ear. And the middle ear, those vibrations go through three bones, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. These three tiny, tiny bones are joined together by synovial joints. And when the eardrum vibrates, they vibrate. And the last of these is attached to the oval window, and it works kind of like a plunger, pushing in and out on the oval window to create vibrations in fluid inside a part of the inner ear called the cochlea, and that's where sound is detected. There's two other parts, the semicircular canals, which you can kind of see those loops there, and then there's also this vestibule, which consists of the utricle and the saccule. I'll say more about those later. The two nerves there are part of cranial nerve 8, the vestibulocochlear nerve. And so let's go back to those vibrations. So the vibrations from the tympanic membrane create vibrations in the three ossicles, which moves the oval window in and out, and that produces vibrations in the cochlea. And so the cochlea contains ducts, and these ducts have fluid in it that's moving back and forth in pressure waves. And when these waves of pressure pass through there, they brush some hair cells, and these hair cells are little mechanoreceptors. And when the cilia of these hair cells move, that will trigger the hair cell to activate neurons. And so we detect sound with these hair cells. Okay, and so vibrations from air go to the eardrum, to the ear ossicles, and then to vibrations in fluid. And so this is, I don't know why I have this slide right here, but this shows the parts of the middle ear, the tympanic membrane, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. It shows some additional structures there, the tensor tympani and the stapedius muscle. These can tighten these up during loud sounds. So anyway, sound processing happens. First, the sound is detected in the cochlea, which you can see there. Then the vestibular cochlear nerve, cranial nerve 8, goes to the cochlear nucleus, okay, which then transmits sound to part of the midbrain called the inferior colliculi, which then sends it to the thalamus, which then goes to the auditory cortex or the temporal lobe. Okay, we hear sounds by which hair cells are vibrated most vigorously. Okay, and so this cochlea is a coiled duct, and sounds that vibrate just the bottom of the duct are heard as high frequency sounds, high pitched. If they vibrate the farthest part of the duct, that will be low frequency and so low pitch. Volume is determined by the amplitude of the sound waves, and then timbre is the resonant quality or overtone. So it'll be other kind of secondary vibrations that occur. The brain can localize sound by which ear hears it first, and so we can detect very slight differences in the time that vibration gets to the ear. That helps us locate sounds. In addition, the inner ear has structures that help us determine static and dynamic equilibrium. These are really part of how we determine our body position. And so the vestibule, which consists of two structures, the utricle and saccule, determine static equilibrium, and then the semicircular canals, there are three of these, determine dynamic equilibrium. And so static equilibrium is really head position. And so you have these three kind of closed chambers, or two closed chambers, the utricle and saccule, that have these macula in them, which contain a gel-like material with heavy calcium carbonate crystals, or otoliths, embedded in a gel. When we position our head, if the force of gravity causes this gel to move, okay, that will bend the hair cells that are also embedded in the gel, and our brain will determine that, well, that's the head position has changed. And so we have these little macula all around the inside of these blind chambers, utricle and saccule. Okay. Then we also have semicircular canals, which are these ring-like structures that are hollow tubes with a kind of a bulb at the base. And in this bulb, or ampullae, is again a gel-shaped thing with embedded hair cells. And when fluid flows around in this tube, it can cause this cupula of gel to bend, and that will trigger the hair cells again, and the brain will interpret that as rotation in a specific direction. So we have three semicircular canals because there are three possible axes of rotation. You can rotate on a horizontal axis like shown here, but you can also rotate on a vertical axis or on a lateral axis. So equilibrium turns out to be very complex. This is going to go back to the vestibular nerve and the vestibular nuclei, but there are other nuclei in other parts of the brain that are also giving input on equilibrium, and these are going to meet up in various places like the thalamus, the cerebellum, and the cerebrum. We have visual reflexes in the midbrain that are linked to these equilibrium pathways. We also have a lot of input coming from body position things that are going to the cerebellum that will also link up with this. So in summary, vibrations in air move the tympanic membrane. Middle ear bones transmit vibrations to the cochlea. And in the cochlea, the organ of Corti, hair cells detect the vibrations that the brain will then interpret as sound. It receives that information via the 8th cranial nerve. Head position, static equilibrium, is detected in the utricle and saccule, and head rotation is detected in the semicircular canals. Okay, very good.